Welcome to Mindful Life 121. I'm your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. Tonight, we're talking quite a couple of things. We could start off tonight talking about the blackout that we recently had, but then there's also hot on the press the fact that the scrap iron men are protesting, and their protests seem to be getting kind of on the dangerous side. And then right with that is the situation where our country seems to be in the middle of a crime wave, more specifically a murderous crime wave, because the gangs seem to be in a really heated war right now, at least the prominent gangs, and people are being caught in the crossfire. So if you're inside of the live over on TikTok or over on Instagram, be sure to hit that like button. Over on YouTube too, you can hit that like button, drop a comment, let me know what you think. If you're on these streams on Instagram or TikTok, be sure to head over to YouTube at some point in time. You can subscribe to my channel there, Nathan Springer, over on YouTube. All right, the Russell Reyes says they can't count and don't know their alphabet like gangs 679 and ABG, and they fully dance. You see, the thing is, here's the thing. Even insulting these gangs, even insulting these scrap iron men and stuff, because I've seen quite a bit of that, insulting them doesn't help the situation, and it doesn't change any of the facts of the situation. The facts of the situation remain what they are. And the fact of the situation is that these men have high-powered rifles and they're not afraid to use it. Call them fully done, say they can't count, say they can't do math, whatever you'd like. Nonetheless, innocent people are being caught in the crossfire. So something else beside them being fully done needs to be pointed out. All right. Before we get into the scrap iron guys and all of that, just something interesting I found, and it's a kind of pet peeve of mine in a way. It's interesting, but a pet peeve at the same time, because it shows the nature of our institutions here in Trinidad and Tobago. T&Tech was warned. An article from the Daily Express, T&Tech was warned. Commission told on Monday of tower problem. A fallen tree caused it in February. On Tuesday night, however, land slippage along the unopened segment of the Solomon Hochari Highway extension to Point 14 caused the collapse of a Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Commission transmission tower. Page jumped. Triggering power outages across the country. It happened near Grand Trace Roselac along the 220 kilovolt transmission line delivering power from the Trinidad Generation Limited plant in Labray to the rest of the power grid. However, this is the interesting part to me. The National Infrastructure Development Company, NIDCO, which has oversight of the highway extension project, said the land movement near the tower was first observed on Monday, and T&Tech was informed of the instability. So, since Monday, T&Tech was warned, this very crucial line, good night Alan Neptune over there on TikTok, this very crucial line, the tower holding this very crucial line up, the ground underneath is moving. They were warned about this on Monday. I don't know about anyone else, but I would have thought that's something kind of an emergency. Something, you get someone on that ASAP. But apparently T&Tech didn't find so. And the thing is, I am not surprised, because myself, I know there are two wooden poles down in the back by me. Two wooden poles that are connected to nothing. They're levitating off of the earth. Right now, they are defying the laws of gravity. Some contractor came to reattach a Digicel line because some of them scrap iron guys, they dealt with a cable, and when they deal with a cable, the tension kind of gets thrown off. So a contractor come to deal with a Digicel cable and fix it back. And Let me hit you all this story. So he come to deal with the Digicel cable and fix it back. So a tanti I know, let's not get too specific, wanted some extra line to hang clothes. So she was like, see if you have a little extra. So I went, you have a little extra, and he said, no scene, man, he cut a little piece, perfect stuff to hang clothes. Just by the way, it hangs clothes perfectly. Anyway, and just by the way, he stopped, he like, wait, watch this. And he shows me that he is now tying the top of the pole to the other one to keep it up, because there's nothing holding it. He said as soon as he undid one of the wires from another side, he just saw the whole pole start to lean. The poles are being held up by wires. He tied it up temporarily. A phone call was made to T&Tech. They said, yeah, they'll come and check it out. That was 2 weeks ago. These wooden poles are levitating at the moment, tied on by some contraption at the top. And T&Tech is taking their merry time. Hat Queen, no. T&Tech is taking their merry time. So, I am not surprised. It seems like emergencies don't faze them that much. They aren't fazed by these kinds of things that much. So, they got the warning that the pole is in unstable ground since Monday. By the way, the current was lost on Tuesday, 7:20 p.m. So that's at least 24 hours past, where they could have done something about that, and nothing was done. In February, less than 2 kilometers away, a fallen tree had struck the same transmission line, causing a nationwide blackout. And even back then, I remember people asking about, but doesn't T&Tech, make sure no trees are within the vicinity of their very important lines? And apparently no. Apparently not. T&Tech said Tuesday's incident left 35% of the island without a supply of electricity. The commission said it immediately began load shedding, with power in all but one location being restored by 1 a.m. yesterday. So they had to take from some places to supply to some places, and that's why up till yesterday some people were still getting blackouts every now and again, to be honest. I received no blackouts at no point in time. At any point in time, I didn't receive any of the blackouts, so I feel pain as a fellow Trinidadian for all of you who had the blackouts back then and today, etc. But I wasn't one of you. I wasn't among you. That pain was all yours to feel. But this, I really do find that strange. I find that not to be serious. I find that not to be serious. You're the Electricity Commission. You're in charge of this. You have the resources for this, because they spoke there that a whole team was out there, is out there now, and they have multiple poles and they're looking to redirect the wire, etc., etc. And I'm thinking, well, okay, shouldn't this kind of have been started Monday? Like, here's the thing. If they were out there Monday, at least getting the process started, and then by Tuesday the blackout happened. But when the blackout happened and they took the picture of the pole with the little kind of crooked bend on the pole, if when they took that picture, there were T&Tech trucks all around the pole, and we heard they were there since Monday assessing and fixing the situation, I can assure you everyone in the country would have been like, wow, our Electricity Commission is working. Those boys are efficient. But it feels kind of insulting to know that the people in charge of this kind of essential service would wait till something actually negatively happens, while being previously warned, before they actually jump into action. Nah, I can't see it. But it's unfortunate, but not surprising. Good night, Wendy Medium XL. Now, I would like you all to know, just to put in that plug there, For my charts, if you are looking at the charts, the maps in the background, and you find they look cool and spiffy, well, they are supplied by SM and Associates, Study Monkey and Associates. Over on Facebook, you can find them STUD with 2 E's, Study with 2 E's, Study Monkey and Associates. They have some really nice local charts, lots of educational stuff. You can hit them up to get that. I believe over on TikTok, they are SM Resources, S.M.Resources. Usually inside of the live chat, if you see them there, hit them up. By all means, go and get some charts. You know, if you have a child whom and you want to teach them something more, if you struggle with certain things, there's no shame in that. And personally, I like the charts. How much for them? They're really reasonable, like $40 and $60. 60 is the max for some of the biggest charts. Some of these are 40, etc. They have unique details on them, speaking about the where the names of different communities originated, which names were Amerindian, which names were Spanish, which names were Dutch, etc., etc., etc. Nice, unique stuff, perfect for Trinidad and Tobago. So if you're looking for that, head over to Study Monkey and Associates, study with 2 E's, over on Facebook, or S.M.Resources right there on TikTok if you are over there. Just that plug for that. They're the sponsors of these charts. Hi, Steamy One. What's the good? Now, we're going over to the scrap iron guys, because the scrap iron guys are very upset. I remember, what was that, a month ago or something like that, when, thank you very much, Steamy. Thank you very much. Good reminder. A month ago or so, when Betham residents were doing their thing, I remember talking about a very popular quote by one late, great Martin Luther King Jr., the Reverend, the pastor, the well-known civil rights figure. And he is quoted as saying that riots are the voice of the unheard. I know people may have heard that too many times, and especially when you're the one being affected by the riot, you're like, what nonsense is this? But I found that statement so pertinent, and it's still very pertinent even when we look at this scrap iron business, because again, we're seeing it. And as I said back when we first spoke about this, riots being the voice of the unheard wasn't a recommendation for the unheard people to go out there and riot. It was just a statement of fact for people within society to understand that if there are people in society who feel like they cannot be heard, riots would be the next thing. If people feel like their voices cannot be heard, they tend to get more extreme. Now, on the side of the rioters, it is widely known, and I always say this, that getting violent almost always loses support for your cause. That's just the nature of it. If you get violent in nearly any kind of protest, if your protest goes from protest to riot, nearly every time you lose support for your cause. That's just a fact. That's just the fact of the matter. Regardless of how viable, how righteous your cause might be, it does not matter. If you start to get violent, people are like, oh, that doesn't seem like something I really want to support. And you start losing support for your cause. So all over social media, when you look at much of the videos and articles about the scrap iron guys protesting, especially in Claxton Bay, you're seeing, if you read the comments, a lot of the comments are very insulting, quite insulting to those scrap iron men. And on the less supportive side. Now, that's for the scrap iron men. If they think that they need more public support, well, maybe you should try a different angle. But on the side of the public itself, whether you call the scrap iron men old thieves and bandits and shut down, you suggest that they shouldn't just shut it down for 6 months. They should shut it down for 2 years or something more like that. You could do that in your vexation if you want an justifiable vexation, but you must understand that the men aren't going anywhere. These men aren't going to fly out of the country and disappear. If you are saying that all of these men are thieves and bandits, then I think now self you should be very concerned about what all of these thieves and bandits are going to do for the next 6 months. Let's see that article. Second day of fiery roadblock. 6-month ban on scrap and all metal exports. It was the second day of fiery roadblocks in Claxton Bay yesterday, following last Friday's announcement of the 6-month ban on scrap and old metal export. Scrap iron dealers blocked several points along the Southern Main Road and Cedar Hill Road on Tuesday. They said they were under pain and pressure and that they had mortgages and rents to pay and books to purchase for their children to attend school next month. And I am actually sympathetic to that cause. If you were legitimately in this industry, and many people are saying, well, all of them is thieves, and the fact of the matter is all of them aren't thieves. There are people who do this as a legitimate job. And if you had this as a legitimate job for like the last 6 years or something, you may have planned certain aspects of your life expecting it to carry on that way. And if this is a case of Peter paying for Paul, you got to kind of feel sorry for Peter, because Paul is the thief, but you're still punishing Peter for it. And I find it strange when I see often some police officers and they engage in talk about this like, well, you should have stopped the thieves in your industry. And if you had stopped the thieves in your industry, this wouldn't have happened. And I'm thinking like, these police saying these kinds of things have no kind of self-awareness. Because we know there are thieves inside of the police service, and that's the same thing many people point out. How is it so strange that the thieves inside of the police service are only caught when they are caught red-handed? No one ever sells out a thief. No police ever comes with information about another thieving fellow police. They never sell them out. Strange. And then you would say that, well, somehow these scrap iron dealers were supposed to be able to police men who are thieves. Shouldn't the same thing apply with them too? The same way how police seem unable of policing their fellow workers? Maybe the same thing is with the scrap iron dealers. They also held placards which read, "Free Iron Man and Iron is Life," as they described their industry as one from which several people benefit, including those from whom they buy items. The protest caused traffic gridlock on both days. Yesterday morning's roadblock led to traffic backing up on the Solomon Hochoy Highway. As in an effort to avoid the burning debris, people opted to use this route. Roadblocks continued in the afternoon. Police officers were on hand on both days to clear the debris, but while this was done, other areas were subsequently blocked. The scrap iron dealers were expected to have a meeting yesterday with their member of parliament, and that's the thing with the police also. True police protect their own. When the Medium XL says, Andre Shallow says, shutting down scrap iron makes no sense. Industrialize the industry and maybe things will change. Jerry Leon laughs at the Iron Man concept. And that's the very same thing. So I heard, and I think I said this before, but I heard our Minister of National Security, when he was speaking about this, he was speaking about the fact that there are only 7,000 police officers. And the 7,000 police officers are incapable of following all these hustlers around the country to stop them from stealing the cable. And that is why it was so important to shut down the industry, to help save the stressed and strained police officers. But if the police were stressed and strained trying to chase down the hustlers, and it's the same number of hustlers, all of them are still there, they're just now unemployed. At least back then, it was like we knew what they were eating. We knew these guys were hunting copper, so we could actually plan for it a bit. But now, all of these same guys are out there and you have no idea where they are. And it's the same 7,000 police. The number of police isn't magically increasing. It's the same 7,000 police to the same amount of hustlers inside of the scrap iron industry. And if they were hustlers, think about this. If someone was climb up the wire, cut it down kind of hustler inside of the scrap iron industry, they were a thief. Is the shutdown of the industry going to send them to church or convert them into high morality? Is that how it works? When you shut down the industry, these guys are going to turn to honest work. Does that make sense, really? The scrap iron leader, the leader of their industry, their association, scrap iron dealers say industry could lose $130 million in revenue. The 6-month closure of TNT's scrap iron industry could result in a loss of $130 million in revenue, as the industry is said to generate close to $260 million annually. The claim was made by TNT Scrap Iron Dealers Association President Alan Ferguson during a media conference yesterday, as he again urged the government to rescind the 6-month ban on exports. He also said they will stage a rally from the Brian Lara Promenade, Port of Spain, next Wednesday from 9 a.m. All the persons who agree that we were treated unfairly and those affected, please come out. I want all householders, mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers. I am asking you all to come out. This is an attack on poor people, he said. Now, I think it sensible. No, they might steal, Chike Pear says, no, they might steal something else that may not impact the infrastructure. I am not 100% certain of that, because they are also angry. So I could see them very much trying to impact the infrastructure. And if we were incapable of protecting the infrastructure before, what is going to increase our capabilities now? Now, I think it sensible to also point out that we are not the only country that banned scrap iron. I think that is a good point to point out. Other Caribbean countries, Jamaica banned it, I think, for 2 years. Guyana banned it. Certain places in the United States, I believe, banned it completely. However, I don't think that is necessarily justification for doing it now. So damned if you do and damned if you don't. To some extent, yes. To some extent, yes. That is the reality of governance. That's the reality of governance. There are some cases where there is no obvious right decision. It's like the shutdown for the COVID pandemic. The shutdown for the COVID pandemic was supposed to decrease the amounts of deaths. Maybe it did, maybe it did. But what it certainly did was bring along a whole laundry list of other problems caused directly by the shutdown. Not by the virus itself, but by the shutdown. All are fearless. So the either decision, whether you left things open or you shut it down, was going to have some kind of negative results. And this is a case such as this. If you left it open, there's a possibility that the thefts may have continued, and you don't want the thefts going on the delicate infrastructure. But here is where my problem lies. My problem lies in the fact that there were suggestions on how to do this. As the president stated in this very same article, he stated that they brought up suggestions. He brought up suggestions to scan the containers in the port. He brought up suggestions to ban copper exports for 3 months and sort out the dealers. He suggested that there were only about 10 dealers that were accepting these stolen goods. He offered to give the police information and carry them around so that they can check out which dealers may be dealing in these illegal goods. He offered all of these things. Maybe all of his offers were nonsense. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. But wouldn't it at least make a modicum of sense to try some of them? Or at least inform us, the public, how you tried. Okay, we tried some of the ideas that the association. No, he did not, Chike Pear. You were not listening to these lives. And this is why I could say this with confidence, because you can go on my YouTube channel over a month ago. I was speaking about articles from over a year ago, where this very same Mr. Ferguson was raising these very same issues. A year ago, there was an article, please don't shut down the industry. And the man went through a whole list of suggestions that he brought to the government on how they could try to change some of this. But no. They didn't do any of that. They shut down the industry. And then now that the men are angry because they were trying from before, the men are angry now. Some of the citizens who were not paying any attention, they had no idea about all the suggestions that these men were making. You had no idea about it. And you're coming now and saying, well, good for them. Look at the thieves and them. But the men were trying. If you were saying that, okay, we tried their suggestions and their suggestions did not work, I am not sure that the port containers can scan and single out copper only. You do not have to scan and single out copper, Chike. Chike, are you working for the PNM today? These suggestions are getting kind of more ridiculous because you just said something, you asserted something, and before you admit that you were wrong about your assertion, you are going on to another assertion to try and defend the thing that you were just proven wrong about. Also, the scanners do not need to find copper. It doesn't need to find copper. The copper is in a wire form. You can look inside of the containers and see which containers have the wires in them. He also suggested that all the dealers have to hold copper for 7 days before it be sold. There was listen, I went through the entire article where they went through the list of options that they are offering the government, good ideas to try to solve some of this a year ago. And then for you to come now and say that because some of the thieves continued in that industry, we're going to shut down the entire industry, that really does seem unfair. To me, it does seem unfair. If you are part of an industry, and the industry has some negative sides to it, and you are recommending ways to stop these negatives, and they do not implement the recommendations, they shut down the entire industry. How does that make sense? I just don't understand that. So don't think I'm anti to the industry, just thinking out loud. It's a conversation. Cool. Understood completely, Cheeky. Fearless says, I think it's a good idea to shut them down. And okay, fair enough. But I will say that some of the consequences of it, you'll have to take that too, because that's how life goes. Life has trade-offs. It may work against the iron dealers in the long run. Who knows? Next thing, their behavior in the next couple months causes a shutdown of the industry for the next 2 years. Maybe that might happen. But even so, what would be the consequence for the rest of Trinidad? When we are already facing rampant murders, many people are worried to go outside already. Many people are worried about what is going to happen with this kind of crime situation. What do you think it's going to do? Would it help the country in the long run, or would it cause a hindrance? I am trying to figure out, would there have been a way for us to more specifically target theft while not creating an entire unemployed block of men? And the reality being, because I've been in and around the scrap industry, the reality being, many of these men are already men who have had some sketchy pasts. Some of them may be ex-convicts, etc., etc. Yeah, Douglas boy, I'm seeing you. Some of them may be some ex-cons, and many people point out that, you know, as an ex-convict, it could be difficult to find work. And if in that industry they are able to find work, that's great, as long as they're not stealing. What do you think they're going to do with the 6-month ban? Remember, some of these guys may not be able to find a job very easily any and everywhere. What do you think? And yeah, you could say that they should not be thieves, but we're talking as a country here. So, like I was pointing out with the crime situation a couple of days ago, where yes, the fact is parenting maybe is the root cause for the crime situation in Trinidad. Poor parenting, poor social groups, etc. These children are growing up wayward and then they go into a life of crime. True, fact, no doubt. But on the countryside, on the countrywide side, when you're talking about crime on the day-to-day, you're not concerned about the parents themselves. Your concern is the police, who are supposed to protect you in case of such social breakdowns. Chike says this happens when the industry grows too large before legislation. Possibly. Shadow Apprentice says it's harder to get a job if you're unvaccinated now too. And some of those guys may very well be unvaccinated. But personally, I think many of them scrapmen, they don't need any vaccination. Listen, Those guys survive in some of the worst conditions. They walk barefoot in the dump. Not all, but some of them walk bareback in the dump, sitting on couches in the dump. Andrew Shallow says, just like the drug trade, if big boy is not profiting, it's illegal. Now, here's the thing with that I'm wondering about. If this reopens, if the scrap iron industry reopens, and what we see is that legislation is written in such a way that it corners the market for certain specific companies, that would be predictably unfortunate. Predictably unfortunate. And I wouldn't even be surprised. And that's the worry in some of this. The worry in some of this when they point out that, yes, this industry is shut down all over the world, etc., etc. I have a feeling that a lot of that has to do with the fact that it's an industry where people could enter easily from the ground. Jonathan J. Henry, I believe the stealing is going to continue during the 6 month. The reality is, many of these yards stockpile in the first place. So, some people may be very willing to steal and stockpile in the meanwhile. So it's not that it is not impossible for the stealing to go on. It is not impossible. Some people may still very well be profiting if they steal this. Advisor to the association, Kenny Plaza, said the industry makes over $230 million a year. Approximately 2,000 workers are directly affected in this industry presently. Presently, 5,000 to 8,000 who are the collectors on the street that we normally see, and there are the indirect people which are the haulier, custom brokers, etc. So affected with the closure for the next 6 months, over 15,000 persons. What difference between West Indian and I don't understand what you're talking about there. The government just slowed the ability to contribute to the global supply. Exactly, they'll just continue accumulating those wires. 15,000 persons. 15,000. That's a lot of people. That is a lot of people. And we should also note that we're seeing global economic challenges. Prices are going up, inflation is on the rise. Jobs aren't exactly jumping out of the woodwork for everyone to go get another one, especially if you are an unskilled laborer. What are these people expected to do? And many of them may not have been paying NIS, so they can't even get a little something to hold them over in the meantime. Nah, I'm struggling to see the wisdom in that move. And many people speaking on it seem to be speaking callously without putting an honest view on the situation. The industry, no doubt, has many really horrible characters. But as Mr. Jacobs pointed out, he pointed out that the guns coming into Trinidad are coming in via the United States. So that means they're coming in through the ports, through ports of legal entry. There were times where they went into warehouses and found stashes of guns in warehouses. Should they shut down warehouses? Is that how you do it? Would you punish the entire industry for the fact that there are some bad players in the industry? Or would you hopefully try to use the positives inside the industry to work together with you to figure out how to get rid of the negatives? I'm not a supporter of the parliament, but what other decisions could have been made? Well, this is what I was saying. There were many recommendations that the Scrap Iron Association brought forward. There were many recommendations that the Scrap Iron Association brought forward. One was to stop the export of copper specifically, and that could have been done. The other was noting that all scrap iron dealers don't deal in all different metals. You can use the fact they're saying this is an unregistered industry, which is not true. All of these scrap iron dealers are registered under the Ministry of Trade. The men are registered. The location of their yards must be registered. All of the stolen metal passes through these registered yards, some one of them, and onto registered containers. Registered trucks haul them. They go to the port and leave on registered boats. There were several steps along the way that you could have focused in on. You could have, as the man said, paused copper for 3 months. He was offering information on who might be the ones dealing in the illegal scrap iron. And as one of the opposition members pointed out, one of the opposition, I believe this was Rudal Muninal, and he is a lawyer for what it's worth, he pointed out that he thought of it as being this simple. If you raise the consequences, the punishment for dealing in stolen scrap iron to an exorbitant amount, and you catch just a couple, that would have killed the theft one time. And I have reason to believe there may be some fact to that. Because bear in mind, the scrap iron dealers are not your everyday criminals. They are not your career criminals. They aren't out there prowling looking to rob a Chinese grocery store and risking going to jail. They don't want that. So if you catch 2 of them, slap them with 5 million and 2 years in prison, what do you think was going to happen with the rest who were dealing in stolen goods? And the fact is, the only reason that the thousands of guys who were scaling the poles, cutting the wires, were doing it, the reason they were doing it was to supply the yards. That's the reason. That suggestion would have just stopped the small men. Well, what are we doing now? The ban only stops the small men too. I don't get it. It's the same thing. That suggestion would have stopped anyone. That suggestion would have stopped the entire thing. It wasn't about catching what we're doing now isn't going to catch anyone either. That way you would have at least caught somebody. What surprised me was when the press said he spoke to them and they listened, so why don't you tell? I don't know. The president of the association, he said he spoke to them. They said they were listening. And the thing that I find strange with it is, if these ideas were bad, Jonathan J. Henry, if these were bad ideas that could not have worked, why didn't they at least come out and say that? Say that the ideas being proposed right now cannot work because of X, Y, Z, so we must shut down the thing. There's nothing like that. Just a heavy-handed approach, shut it down. Tony the ambassador says TSTT must take responsibility for their equipment. They didn't put a plan in place for removal. Well, that was another thing. The president of the association was pointing out that they were in talks with TSTT before all of this to do a deal to properly take down all the wires. According to the president of the association. You see, this is why you have to follow some of the news, because there are lots of stories that ran up into this. According to the president of the association, they were offering to pay TSTT to take down all of these wires. That was their offer. He said TSTT refused the offer. And over time, we saw what began to happen. And it just ramped up and ramped up and ramped up further. So I agree, Tony the ambassador, TSTT may really have some fault to take. The association president also stated that he had info about a politician benefiting from the trade. Jonathan J. Henry said it was worth a try. Teriyaki, that is true. A lot of wires hanging all over that not even in use. No, that's the fact, Teriyaki. The first set of wires The first set that we saw hanging from all the poles were not actual real used wires. They were TSTT wires that were condemned. They were supposed to be retrieved. They were supposed to be. And then what began to happen as the appetite for wires grew, one, they began cutting Digicel wires too. Digicel had to release a statement allowing people to know, hey, listen, people. We don't have copper in our wires. We're running fiber optics. Please don't cut our wires. Please don't cut our wires. And from that excitement, it seems they ramped up and started cutting quite a bit more. But the first set of wires were wires that had to be removed anyway. Good night, Rhea. They had to be removed anyway, and they would. So that's a part in that. Source of funds may have been a problem for TSTT. I don't know. Because TSTT makes contracts with all kinds of people. Why steal 1 million in items and feel you have the right to do so? What are you talking about? I don't know who you are talking about there. Who stole 1 million in items? Where's your evidence of that? Where's the proof? Who are you saying that did that? The need for removal inspired the small man. Exactly. So there's enough blame to go around. And then for the response to be just shut it all down, I find that seems very heavy-handed. It seems just way overboard for me. It seems way overboard. I don't understand how that came about, and it's very unfortunate that it may be the regular, good night, Richard, it may be the regular citizens of the country that may have a lot of the consequence to pay for this action by the government. This action to just, on a moment's notice, shut down an entire industry. Like, and who pays for that? Who has the negative fallout for the most because of that? Talking about negative fallout. Fallout in the water. I was reading, good night, Patadine. I was reading just the culmination of this whole Grenada business with the harbor master. And I feel there was some lawyer business going on in here. Harbor master captain brawl with Grenada athlete blown out of proportion. So all of them pled, was it all? Yes, all of them pled guilty and they received a little fine, a little slap on the wrist and went away. I think that was some lawyers going in there and, you know, just plead guilty and let's get this whole thing done with quickly. That's what it seems like to me, because from the information that the captain keeps giving out, he keeps basically saying that they are innocent. So to plead guilty while maintaining in public that you are innocent is kind of strange. That seems like some lawyer business just so it would be done with quickly. 4 Trinidadians convicted in Grenada for the assault of national athlete Anderson Peters have each been fined 5,500 Eastern Caribbean dollars or just under $14,000 each. Their sentencing was delayed until yesterday, and all 4 were spared jail time. Their fines and legal fees were paid by their employers. By noon, they were released from police custody. I think when you hear that, it seems like the employer came in and said, listen, we brought some lawyers here, just let the lawyers handle it. The lawyers say, plead guilty. You plead guilty, we pay the fines, and you're out of jail by tomorrow. Don't beat up. Don't study that. Personally, I feel like who I am on the inside. Me, personally, I feel like I wouldn't have been able to plead guilty if I'm not guilty. If this guy spat on me and dash water in my face, I wasn't pleading guilty. I was not pleading guilty. Hours later, Captain Noel Cooper spoke to Guardian Media in an exclusive interview from his quarters on the Harbour Master about the incident. And on August 10th, the Harbour Master and its crew was in Grenada for 1 week and scheduled to return to Trinidad later that night after 2 back-to-back events. What took place was something common, according to the captain, because with this type of environment, any type of environment where you have alcohol involved, you have persons who would behave in a hostile manner, in an aggressive manner. But he said while pushback from guests on the vessel was something he and his crew was accustomed to, on this occasion it turned out to be much more impactful than they could have predicted. Cooper said after docking the vessel, the crew was preparing for another event when they realized Peters and his friends were still on board. These individuals were asked repeatedly. It was almost as if we had to beg them to depart the vessel. However, they weren't too pleased with that. Statements were made, slurs, expletives. They attacked our nationality. Here now. Here now. They attacked our nationality. So, Tobago went over to Grenada to invite them to Tobago Carnival for October. So, any Grenadians coming over for October? I just want a word. I just want to have a word with you. What are the insults about our nationality? And spitting and dashing water on people. And here's the thing. The reason this story is believable is because the evidence shows the first event ended. These are the men that belong on the boat. You do not belong on the boat. If there's a fight between the men who belong on the boat and the men who don't belong on the boat, and the men who belong on the boat says they were trying to get you off, who are you more likely to believe? What were you fighting for? It is not your boat. The event is ended. Why are you fighting the crew of the boat? According to some of the information further on, they said that some other information out there, they said that reportedly Big Boy Grenadian was invited or supposed to be there for the second event. He was supposed to be there for the second event. But according to the captain, even if he was supposed to be there for the second event, you have to leave the boat and then come back on for the second event. You must leave the boat anyway. And to still be fined for this seems like, to me, this seems a travesty of justice. This seems like what would happen in countries where the justice system doesn't really work, and the justice system is basically just based on what the public sentiment wants. So this was the public sentiment of Grenadians. They're angry that these Trinis come here and beat up we Olympic star, so we have to take some money from them. That's what it seems like to me. That's the kind of public sentiment. I think that's a dangerous thing. I don't think we want to be functioning on that level in the Caribbean because there are many outside Caribbean people that go up and down the roads of Trinidad and Tobago. So if when our police officers hear accent, they decide just to press you some more because, you know, it's just what the citizens of the country want. We want to get back at these Grenadians, you know, get some get backs at these Grenadians. So the police out there press them more. Would that be a good thing? No, I'm answering. No, it will not be a good thing. I think that was just very unwise. As they said, home court advantage. But the thing is, in what is supposed to be a free nation, there's never supposed to be a home court advantage. There's never supposed to be a home court advantage. And the whole idea of justice is supposed to be that it is supposed to be fair regardless of who the person is. That's why so often they portray Madam Justice or whoever is the representative of justice as being blind because they are not supposed to pay attention to who the person is. But this seems like there was a lot of attention paid to who the person is. It started with me being assaulted by who turned out to be Anderson Peters. And of course, naturally, my crew seeing that, they rushed to my defense. It was just Mr. Anderson, but it wasn't just Mr. Anderson, but he had some other persons with him as well. And now this Mr. Anderson Peters is a young, strong guy. That's a young, strong guy, and he is rushing an older man who is the captain of the boat. Like, relax. And what makes me also think that this is even further lawyers and the boss of the boat involved. You know, they're saying just, let's get this entire thing under the rug as soon as possible. Is because the captain previously was speaking about suing Mr. Anderson Peters, which I think is a good idea. Sue him. Let's see how much money the gold medal gave him out there in Grenada. I would have thought that was a good idea, personally. He has even reconsidered his earlier, but despite all that happened in the days following the incident, Cooper said he bears no ill will towards Peters. He has even reconsidered his earlier decision to bring private criminal charges for assault against Peters. It was unfortunate what took place. To me, it was just a brawl. Big men got into a fight, and it was blown out of proportion. It was a lesson learned, not just for the other side, I'm guessing, but for sure it was a lesson learned for me and my crew. I have since had a change of heart. Everything worked out well, thanks be to God. Let bygones be bygones. I wouldn't doubt there was some wheeling and dealing behind this. There must have been. For all you know, Mr. Peters behind the scene already did the apology and everything, but they kept it on the low. I think this whole incident has a lot more under the surface, because from his story, he is still maintaining his innocence, although he pled guilty. And from him going from wanting to press private criminal charges to just let bygones be bygones. You know what? Forget about all of this. Okay. He was also relieved that despite the anger coming from Grenadians, he and his crew were treated well while in custody at the St. Paul's police station. Now Cooper is looking forward to return home, but he cannot say when that would be, nor could he give an update on the civil matter being brought against him, the crew, and the owner of the Harbour Master, Adrian Schoon. That is the same Harbour Master, just by the way, that is still right now wrapped up in court over the floating restaurant business back during COVID times. It's the same Harbour Master. So the Harbour Master knows their way around court. Remember, those guys have their lawyers already. So the lawyers probably swooped in there, made sure a deal was made, who have to say what, money was paid. We good over here. But personally, just for me, if I wasn't guilty, I wasn't pleading guilty. I was not going through that. I wasn't pleading guilty if I wasn't guilty. Nah, not happening. Nathan Rosen says it's a business move as well. Can't burn bridges when there's a market there. Of course not. Remember, that was a back-to-back cruises they were on over there in Grenada. That was money. Those guys are on their money. You know, they want to be invited back to Grenada. More money to be made. EC dollars pay well too. So if we have to just seem like we take the L for the Grenadian sports star just to make sure the money keeps flowing, well, we'll take that L in the courts and take the W in the bag. We'll take the L in the courts and the W in the bag. Just make sure that bag is fat the next time we swing through. So it could be all business. It could be all business because the fact of the matter is the owners paid the fee for them. So it's not even like the crew had to pay the fee. The only thing that would take a hit is their pride, if they had any pride in pleading guilty or not. But they pled guilty. They didn't have to pay the lawyer fee. They didn't have to pay the fee to the courts. They had nothing to pay. And they're out of jail. So on the cruise side, they're happy. All right, folks, that's all I have for now. As I leave, there's a meetup planned for the 28th of this month. If you are interested, there's a Discord link, a link to a Discord server. It's not exactly a group chat. If you know what Discord is, you know what it is. If you don't, go on my profile over on over on TikTok, my profile over on TikTok. There's a link to my Discord server there. You can click that link and join the server. And you would also know if ever I miss a live like I did last night, I would say in that Discord server, you could get the updates there. It's very convenient for such things. So if you are interested in making sure you have contact for that and interested in the meetup on the 28th of this month, head over to my profile on TikTok and click on that Discord server and join in. Good night, SM Resources. That is the Study Monkey resources I was speaking about that supplied these wonderful charts you see here. They have a lot of beautiful local charts. Another chart that I got, just by the way, a nice little clock to teach the young ones some telling analog time, because you start to recognize many of these youth these days, they don't know anything about analog time. They're good with the digital. But when it comes to that analog business, they're lost. They have that in stock too. Study Monkey and Associates over on Facebook, and SM Resources over here on TikTok. Love the lives, bro. Thank you very much, Jonathan Henry. Not to be off topic, but how do I get one of those Mindful t-shirts? Just message me. The Mindful t-shirts and the hats, if so interested, are as usual for sale. For those who are interested, hit me up in my inbox and place an order, and you can be linked with that. For real, need a Mindful t-shirt? Well, hit me up. Anyway, I am on Facebook, I am on TikTok, I am on Instagram, I am on YouTube, I am on Discord, I am even on Twitter, but that's that. All right, folks, I hope you are educated, informed, or entertained, and it was glad to have you here with me, and it was glad to be here with you. And I will see you guys again tomorrow night for the next Mindful Live around 9:15, between 9 and 9:15 p.m. Peace out. It was nice. Laters, folks. Peace.